This is ContactTalkRadio.com. Consciousness in action. And you are taking action into your consciousness by tuning into Contact Talk Radio.
And on TuneIn.com, Ping.fm, and UpSnap Mobile.
Contact Talk Radio.
When was the last time you felt inspired? Are you ready to take your passions to make a difference while living a life you truly love? Your host, Katana Abbott, who is a life and legacy wealth coach and certified financial planner, searches the world to bring you experts in the field of personal and professional growth, wealth creation, and mind, body, and spirit. So grab a cup of coffee and take that quantum leap you've been waiting for. Smart Women Talk Radio, the link to live with purpose, passion, and prosperity.
Hello, everyone. This is Katana Abbott, and I want to welcome you all to Smart Women Talk, where I search the world. And I search the world for smart women and a few good men. Now, it's been a while since we've had men on. So I'm going to make a point to bring some of those smart men back here. So this includes best-selling authors, thought leaders, and change agents who are on that leading edge. So we have topics like money, business, health, inspiration, and the metaphysical. So today we are interviewing Renée Piane, and we're talking about strategies for refreshing our love and relationships. Remember, this is for those listening live, it's February and we just had Valentine's Day. So we've been extending this idea of love and relationships all month long. So we're going to have some fun, really. And we're going to talk about rituals to switch gears, to get in sync with your partner and family in order to have deeper love. Love that. The powerful influence of your tone, your voice, and your body language. And then how to align parts of you that may be sabotaging success and your love life. So let me tell you a little bit about Renée. I met her, oh gosh, maybe it had to be over 5 years ago out in California through my good friend Ruth Klein, who was just on the show in December at a branding conference. So Renée Piane is a love designer and relationship reinvention expert. She's a master at connecting people and one of the top influencers in the love industry. She works with high-powered executives and celebrities who are looking for that ultimate match and who are going through transitions in their relationships. Her books Get Real About Love and Love Mechanics have transformed many, many lives. And as the pioneer of the rapid dating and networking, she has matched thousands of people for love and business over the last 30 years. So she's been featured in all the top media. I'm going to rattle it off because it's pretty impressive. CNN, NBC, ABC, The Today Show, The Wall Street Journal, Los Angeles Times, and the New York Times. So anyway, I wanted to do your formal bio there. Really impressive.
I'm so happy to be here. I'm honored. You know, I mean, your work is really helping so many people. I mean, I think the busier that people are, they don't realize that when their love lives are a little out of sync, it affects your business bottom line. And I've been talking about it all over the country. Yep. And I haven't been able, to talk about it because I'm not out speaking. I'm always speaking at conferences and doing networking at conferences. And I'm just honored to be here, Katana, because you're a rock star. You really are. Thank you for having me.
Isn't it great to reconnect again?
Yeah, well, Ruth is, Ruthie, she's such a sweetheart, such a dear friend. And I spoke at one of her events about this topic and the women were really shocked. They're like, I got to start spicing things up here, And, and with really COVID, it's been really a different world. Most of the people that are watching are probably speakers and authors. I mean, you have I looked through your academy. It's amazing. Yeah. But, love sometimes gets put on the back burner during stressful times like this. And believe me, I had my share, and we talked about with my dog and all these other things. There was deaths in the family. And so it's, we all are going through stuff. So we still are in charge of our love lives too. I still think it's up to women to lead the way in love. I know they expect the men to lead, but some men haven't had official Prince training. So I was the first Prince trainer for men back in 1992. So I'm super happy to share some of my insights.
Well, I have an absolute Prince for a husband. All those women that know him, he's one of those husbands that all your girlfriends are best friends with him.
Yeah, mine too. Everybody goes, can I have a Joe? Can you clone him?
Right.
And I have to say, last night I was working on, things for today. And he's like, are you going to, he misses me and I'm like, this is a big thing for me. You got to hang in there. So I make him commitments later. Like, I promise, because I'm busy now, that later, don't worry, I'll make it up to you, So,
oh yeah.
Yeah. So tell me, I know you talk about your husband a lot, and I have one of those really wonderful husbands too. And it took me a while to find it because I was a workaholic. So that's some of the things we'll be talking about today.
Yes. Well, and it cracks me up because we both have been in our industries for 30 years. And it kind of, I feel like, oh my gosh, that dates us. But, there's so many of us that are our age. And, I'm a retirement reinvention coach helping women with that second act or that third act, depending if they're in their 50s or 60s. And so, we're hot now. I mean, women today, man, we're doing stuff, right? We don't just... in fact, what I'm finding when we retire, we are all looking to do something more. And, I think that, the idea of Aunt B being in her 50s is such a hoot because look at the women today in their 50s, 60s, and even 70s. And, some of these 80-year-olds too are just phenomenal. Like Cher, look at her. She's pushing 80.
The women of today, I mean, I'm Italian. So when I go back, all my friends came to my wedding, my big Italian wedding, and my aunts are so beautiful. They're all in the beauty industry and they're all glamorous and, and so I grew up in that industry and the actual catering industry. So that's where I got my passion to help people not only look beautiful, but then when I was working with them, I heard all their problems. So I ended up always doing love consulting since I was really young. Even the nuns used to make me get the little nerdy girls in high school and help them. Like I was always integrating them.
They're watching, they're listening.
The sisters used to say, there's a little girl that's really shy. Do you think you can help her? And I'm like, I'm in 6th grade. Like I'm supposed to be studying, Yeah. So I've been really kind of a connecting person. And my parents were like that. So I want to talk a little bit about that too, like how we're wired is from our lineage.
Right.
And I really believe that, and I don't have my lineage painting, but I'm doing a whole book about the thousands of people. When I find out how they were wired about love, that is why I think our age group became that independent age group where we wanted to make something of our own because we saw our 50s moms and 40s, 50s, 60s moms living the life of, cooking and cleaning. And we're like, I'm not doing that. I was like, I'm not doing that. I'm going to go make my mark,
Yeah.
And I did. I did. And I love every minute of what I do, but it isn't a normal life as a love designer.
Well, let's talk a little bit about how you got into this. I mean, so you already are telling us a little bit of your story because you said that you started in 6th grade with the nuns.
Well, people are shy.
Was it a natural thing?
I think I'm just a people person. I'm a high extrovert, and I was always on stage and always talking and leading people. And I did all the proms because I grew up in a family where we connected people. Our house was the house, and we always had to be pretty. My grandmother lived with us and she'd say, if you're not pretty, men aren't going to like you. I mean, it was really interesting being wired by old school. So it was like The Sopranos meets The Big Fat Greek Wedding meets Nightmare, like pushing you to be your best, which in a way was positive. But on the other hand, some families that I see, their parents were critical of them. I got very lucky to have amazing, loving parents. And my mother was she was a healer, and it runs in my family. So really what I am is a heart healer, and I'm very intuitive, and I love to just wake people up that everybody's beautiful. There's something beautiful about everyone. Then I was in Delaware, where our president is from, and my family, I grew up with Joe Biden. My father helped Joe.
That's right. Yeah, tell us about that. It was interesting.
He had his office in my father's catering building. He was a young man, and my father and him were the first two white men to actually help the African-American community back in the 70s when I was a kid, So my dad and him joined the double NAACP, and my father was the first Italian-American to hire African-Americans in the 70s, which was like taboo. So he was a man that accepted everyone and wanted to help people. So he injected me with the give back gene, and my mother did too. So I feel very blessed to have the lineage that I have. And yet there was infidelity weaved in those Italian men through the generations. And I absorbed some of that as well. And so I became so independent that I didn't need anyone. And I find that the women of our age group, many of us, either got married or many of us did not, because of what we saw in the lineage of our families.
Right. And I want to talk about that a little bit more, because I do something similar. I help women find their money personality, and the money personality is a belief that they have about themselves. And there's 5 of them. So I'd love to hear more about your lineage, but those beliefs that they have, everything we do relates to how we handle our money too. So it's interesting that they hold them back from standing in their power. So these beliefs, and I just had Shelley Lefko on the last show, if anyone from the Lefko Institute, and she is all about these disempowering beliefs, and she has a process for helping us release them. But, from what I've read, you talk about those beliefs that we have and how they hold us back too. So tell us, before we talk more about that lineage, I really want everyone to understand this idea of a love designer. What the heck?
Well, because I was, it was funny because Ruth Klein, who's a marketing person, because I was called the love mechanic, because I was the first coach for men in America at the Learning Annex. And I didn't have a book, and I was doing makeovers on men, and I didn't have a book. So I wrote a book about cars and how to tune up a car to relate to men's minds. And then that started my whole career in doing advice for men. And I got put on television, and then I pioneered the first speed dating company because I saw the loneliness. So I had
the first what kind of?
First speed dating company in America.
Speed dating. That's important to hear. Okay. Wow. Because that's huge.
Well, it was the first speed dating happened at a Jewish synagogue in New York and one in LA. And the girl and I that pioneered the first speed dating was before the internet. The internet had just started in 2000. And that was really where I got to actually look at the different generations dating, because you go for a 5-minute date for the 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s. And I was all over the country doing these events, and I was a workaholic, but it gave me a whole new look at the generational differences of dating. Mm-hmm. So the women that are 30s and 40s now are dating all on apps. The 40s, the 50s, 60s don't even they're like, oh my God, this is really over the top, especially if they've been married. So they don't really know how to get into the dating game with all the tools. So I use my beauty, I guess you could say designing events. I design homes. I also design wardrobes. So I took all my beauty experience and makeover experience, and then I studied NLP and I was a spiritual practitioner studying with Reverend Michael Beckwith for 30 years, metaphysical studies. And I used hypnotherapy, a combination of all of those. Yeah. So I said, how can I describe myself? What am I? I'm a designer. So I take a person, depending on what they need, and use the outer and then the inner. Mm-hmm. So, work that they need to do. And I had to do on myself. So when people read my book, it's my story of being a workaholic because I had trust issues from my lineage, mm-hmm. and how I went out to the world to heal others from what I needed to heal from. And then I finally found love. But I was 45 years old before I got married. Wow. 45. never wanted kids because I saw all my aunts suffer from being left by men when I was a little girl, and no one knew that I was sneaking and listening. So the women that are out there right now that are divorced, or the women that are going through challenges with love, you are affecting your daughters and your sons as you say, men are liars. So I did a TEDx. I was honored to do a TEDx about that, and it was called The Power of Your Love Lineage. So you as a woman, a business woman,
you should send us that link, please.
I will, and I will send it to you.
We'll post it on our social media for everyone.
I would be honored, because it turns out that, my father was not alive when I did it. And my mother used to say, you don't want to expose the generations of cheating in our 5 generations of family, but it held back the women in our family and made the younger women in the 50s just used to get a new husband. I used to just see my aunt say, well, I'm divorced, I'm going to go get a new husband. Like 2 months later, there'd be this new man. And I'd be like, but you just said that you were never going to do that again. Right. Like I'm 6, with my Barbie going, I don't think I'm going to do that. I'm not having kids, because they used to say, you're going to starve if you have kids. You better not trust anybody. But then they'd go get married, and then they'd get divorced, and then they'd get married. And so there was a lot of them. So a lot of them. Right. And it was it imprinted me very deeply. So I became an entrepreneur at 6. I was selling lemonade and saving my money. Like they told me, save your money. So that's why it relates like to what you do, right?
It's funny because I grew up, we were poor. We didn't know it really. And not dirt poor or anything like that, but we were poor. And I used to go with my brother. Well, first of all, I was always doing fundraising, going door to door, and I always came in first in the school, or at the church, we would raise money for the poor, go door to door, collecting holiday dollars. And in Hazel Park and Royal Oak and Berkeley, which are little, those little salt box houses, I'd go door to door the holidays in the winter where it's dark, and my mom would go along in the car and have us going up door to door, and I get doors shut in my face or lights turned out. I'd come home back then in the 70s with $100, all dollar bills. So I would be like one of their top people. So I wasn't afraid to talk to people. I wasn't afraid to ask for money. Do you know how helpful that was when I went through my divorce when I was very young, like 20, and I didn't know what I was going to do for a living. And I was able to fall back on what my skills were and what I learned as a child. And so this whole idea of, what we experience when we're young is so important, good and bad. So you're talking about some of the negative things that could happen, but I'm sure there's really positive things too.
Oh, my father raised, he built the Little Sisters of the Poor in Delaware, a home. When he was a little boy, he was touched by the nuns down the street, and they owned a little chicken store. So he'd bring the chickens, and at 7 years old he said, I'm going to build those nuns a house, and he did do that. And wow. And so he influenced us to do charity and to give to others and to always be grateful. But in our house, it was all glam. Like we used to have Dynasty Christmas Eve, and my father was the top caterer in the nation at one point, and we used to have these huge parties. So we had to be dressed up. So the designer part comes from being with a mother that was an interior designer and very glamorous. And she used to teach us that it's very important for women to look pretty for their husbands and not let yourself get frumpy, as you get older. And she was just she was a positive influence. And my father was very handsome, and he taught us how to set up parties, and he taught us how to treat people and build rapport. So we were very blessed. We were just really blessed. And I guess when I got to school, I became that leader like you did. I was like you. I was always a leader in school.
That's interesting, because you really did take that packaging, that experience, and package it into your career, didn't you?
When I came to California, I knew one person.
Yeah.
So I decided single-handedly, I saw the loneliness, because in small towns, like you came from a small town, you're a big fish in a little city. Delaware's the second smallest state. And I was doing charity events, and I was doing these crazy marketing. I did all the marketing for the salon I worked at, and we did charities for cancer. We did breast awareness fashion shows. We made clothes out of bags. I mean, I was doing crazy stuff even then, and I was bored.
And how old were you back then?
I started in the hair industry when I was 15. I had my license by the time I was 17, and I had a great career, but I got sick from the chemicals. The chemicals made me very ill, and I decided that I was going to come to LA and do television. And so I just came out here and I became a wedding consultant. I did weddings too. That was the other thing that led me to, because my dad did the weddings, I'd meet the parents and the bride and groom, and then I'd do their hair, makeup, pick out their clothes, pack all their stuff for their honeymoon. I just do everything for these people, because a lot of people don't have confidence about their body and how to dress with body shapes. And so I always took them and gave them the feeling of beauty from the inside out by making them feel good in the clothes that they wore. And brides, a lot of them were forced to get married. So I was always their confidant. And I used to think to myself, my God, I'd be fluffing their gown and putting their crown on. And I knew they weren't in love, you know?
Yeah.
So a lot of times people were forced in different cultures to marry. And in LA, the different cultures, the Persians, the Armenians, all the Japanese, Chinese, all cultures have different beliefs about how their kids. Indian cultures, all of them are changing now, but back then it was very strict. Very strict.
My assistant had an arranged marriage, but she said it was just so nice because all the mothers, were introducing their sons to her. And she spent the afternoon, and finally she met her, Ajit, and she spent the day with him, and she asked him, she said, I think this will work out, don't you? And they both agreed. They've been married for years and years. So,
how blessed. That is such a cool story.
Oh, it is. And they really are. They're very happy. And you just wonder, perhaps, maybe it doesn't have to be like forced weddings, but boy, wouldn't it be wonderful if we had all these, loving relatives and friends helping us out and doing all the work for us, because now we're coming into what you do. Because for us, it's for people, I don't have to do it now, but I remember it was scary to have to go out and meet people and try to find the right person. So tell us what this Love Designer, what you're actually doing. And I wanted to ask you like for couples, one of the things we talked about, the 3 biggest challenges that, singles, executive singles, busy women, what they face. So you actually have 3 specific challenges. I can think of tons of challenges that they're facing, but what do you think are the 3 biggest challenges when it comes to doing this?
I think that if a woman like me, I call it the once I syndrome. I was striving to achieve a certain level of success. And I kept thinking that I would meet a different kind of guy if I was really super successful. But what it did was made me look like I didn't have any time for love. So what I do is I make people aware of how they come across, because they think, okay, well, I'm going to become a lawyer, I'm going to become a doctor. But then all those years you're studying, then you got to prove yourself, then you got to pay the bills. And a lot of times you don't carve out space for love in that. And I had that once I syndrome. So I said, once my book is done, once rapid dating gets off the ground, and the busier I got, I used to sometimes squeeze in a little love with somebody that I liked, but I knew I would never marry, because I had one part of me that didn't trust in men. Because if you read my book, you'll see why. I got hurt by some players out here, just like everybody else meets a playboy, or you meet somebody that hurts your heart, and you get a mark and you put a wall up, and then another wall, and then another wall. So you have one part that believes and the other part that's kind of like, I don't even really know if I want it. So if you're not going in one direction, it's just like the same thing with any type of goal, and knowing yourself and the little girl inside of a woman. Every woman has a little girl that wants this dream fairy tale like we have. And I do finally have that. But I had to do some inner reflection. So my book, the reason it's called Get Real About Love, is to open your heart to what you've done, how you were wired, right? How you were wired, and some of your past experiences that may have put an invisible block in front of your heart, and how you can heal that. Because I went to therapy for years, and I said there was so much cheating. I think I just keep dating the same man. I was dating unavailable people because it was really half of me was unavailable. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And, you just mentioned that, and dating attracting the wrong kind of guy. And it's funny, I was teaching this class and I had everyone, write out their intentions for, mind, body, spirit, family, friends, and fun. We had these in, business and money. And this gal, she got so specific on the person she wanted. She wrote everything down. She attracted him within like 90 days, right? We were still working together. Only he was married, and she forgot to write down single.
Uh-oh.
But I mean, he hit every single point, so we have to.
I have that in my book too. It's like really aligning your vision, but are you what you're asking for? Like when women say, well, I want a man that's, attentive and he's got to be successful and he has to be this and that. And I said, but are you what you're asking for? Are you really ready? So I have classes to get people ready for love, like to find out what could be blocking. And really, I prepared my home. I have my dating. I tell people to get date ready. And right now people are like, I'm not dating. You can be dating right now. This is a great time.
Yeah.
The COVID has made busy executives.
I was going to ask you about that.
The COVID has made busy executives have time to reflect on one of the most important decisions, according to me, is the life partner that you choose. If you choose the wrong person, then you got to go through the whole divorce and separate the kids and all that. So if you're going to do it again, choose wisely and get somebody that would, like me or somebody, to help you really get to know you. So the book itself is helping you to get real with yourself so that your heart is fully open. So I always ask people, if you were to tell me how much of you believes in love today, after all you've been through, what is the percentage that you believe that you're going to find love? And a lot of people say, 30%. And I said, well, we need to get the percentages up because of your mindset about it. What happened that made you that way? So yesterday I had a couple that called me from somebody hearing me somewhere. And then when it really came down to it, her husband, when he would say one thing to her, reminded her of her critical mother's tone when she was young, and they were disconnecting. And I figured it out like in 30 minutes. And they were like, we've been in therapy for 6 years, this is unbelievable. And I said, it's just your tone of your voice reminds her of that tone critical of her mother. And I invite people to go back and really, because really when you go back and you look at how my grandmother was the negative one in our realm, and I went back and interviewed her. I said, why were you telling me never, ever, ever, ever to trust anybody? And she sat for 5 hours and told me a story that is so fascinating that I never knew, because it was all hidden secrets. We don't have any secrets on the internet anymore.
Did she let you record it?
It's in the book. It took me almost to write it so that my family didn't freak out. They were freaked out because her mother got left in America in 1800s. And then she married my father's father, who was having an affair with somebody while she was pregnant. And then she went to the Catholic Church and got excommunicated from the Catholic Church because her husband was cheating back in 1935. And she said, I'm not going back. And then she met another man and he cheated. And it was, so she warned us my whole life never to get married or have kids or you'd be left alone. And that was not good.
Wow.
And she lived with us. So I was lucky because I was skinny and my sisters were full figured, and she used to criticize them, and they still are dealing with it even today, So it's really, the lineage of your family is so key, to this whole thing. And some of those things are secrets that nobody wants to talk about. Well, I'm the family investigator, and that's what my TEDx is about. So I'm going to send you guys the link to the TEDx.
Yeah, we'll post that.
I got to tell you, my family didn't even know what happened to me until they read my book, because I left. And then I started doing all this stuff, and they were like, how did you learn this? Why did you do this? I said, because I wanted to heal me. But the cool story is that I met my husband in my hometown, And I had met him when I was 22 at a wedding that I designed. And he came through the line, and I saw him, and I was with a man that I knew I shouldn't marry. How many of you knew that you shouldn't marry the man that you were with when you were in high school and then you got married? And I canceled my wedding, and he came through the line, and I shook this handsome man's hand, and I said, and I got a jolt of lightning. Ooh. And I said, I'm going to marry him someday. And then I moved, and 20 years later, I ran into him again.
Where did you run into him?
In Delaware. My mother died, and I went home and slowed down. So
and
here
you
he
ran
is.
into him there?
There he is. There we are at our 10-year wedding anniversary in Paris. His name is Joe Campanella, and he was friends with my brother and my father, and his mother and my mother knew each other. And even Jill Biden went to the high school that I went to. So it's so weird how small of a world Delaware is. But my brother knew Joe, and Joe, I accidentally ran into him. It is a very romantic love story. If you want to get inspired, I was 42 when I met him, and he was going through a divorce. So any woman out there that says, I don't want anybody that's been divorced. Well, half of the world is divorced, and you probably are half of the half, So you have to open your heart to the unlimited possibilities that there are at any age. I've helped people in their 70s, all ages can find someone.
Oh, absolutely. So this idea, though, if you go through a bad divorce, maybe it's a good thing because it's a test run and you make all these mistakes and then you know what you don't want to do, but maybe there's a way to stop, after. So I think, mistakes are our greatest teacher. But the problem is a lot of takes,
like a take when you do take one of a video. And then you go, you know what, that one didn't work out very well, so I'm going to do a new one. But if you don't get over the pain of it and the ruminating, people ruminate over people for years, like unbelievable how people are still thinking about someone years ago. And this is an interesting thing before I forget. Right now on the internet, a lot of people that dated when they were in their 20s that are now divorced are finding each other on Facebook. They're finding each other on apps. So I invite people that are a little older to go back to your college, right? To your people that you knew back in the day. They could be recycling. Half of the world is divorced. They're recycled.
Don't just assume, right?
No, but a lot of people write to people and they're like, I just was wondering. I get calls. I called an old boyfriend of mine that hurt me really badly a couple weeks ago. I did a video about it. He was the only one person that I hadn't run into over the years where they got to say, I really hurt you when I wasn't ready, when you were ready. And sometimes it's not even you, but most people that get hurt, they take it out on their own heart and they're beating themselves up over something that had nothing to do with them. It was something from the partner where they were at that time.
You've mentioned quite a few times, you've mentioned things that I'm taking Marianne Williamson's A Course in Miracles. She's got a 1-year program she's doing right now. They're just little 5-minute teachings in the morning. And she says there's only 2 things, love and fear. And so you keep mentioning all these things. And I'm thinking, because all that stuff stems from us being afraid, right? Fear is huge. And then the other thing, yesterday's lesson was so interesting because it was all about, and we all do this, we focus on what's all the things that have happened in the past. And we ruminate, just like you said, that exact word. We just keep thinking about all those things that happened and how we don't want to have it happen and how angry we are and blah. And what we focus on, we're manifesting. So it's almost like we're thinking about it and then we're making it in this big stew and bringing it into our life today. And what we're missing out on is the present. And so how do you use that at all? Because I'm thinking, how can we get rid of all that crap and be present and be, in our power in this new person we are? So we see ourselves from back there. We see everyone else from back there, right?
I have a whole chapter on your unique sound effect, because when people break up, they call people and they go, it's been horrible. And then those people go, well, how's Joan? And Joan, oh God, Joan is so messed up. She's still hung up. It's been 2 years with Bill. And then they're like, we want to fix her up, but I don't think she's going to have the really, she's not ready. She's not ready. So whatever you're sharing about yourself, watch who you share it with. That's why it's good. Like if people are having money problems, they come to you. They don't want to tell their friends. They have to have a confidant. I feel like when people hire me, they're like, you're like somebody that's being so honest. Like I have this one woman, it was years ago. She said, you have a gift of telling people things that are hard to say to them in a loving way that makes them get it without hurting their feelings, Yeah. And when people are ruminating and, and I'll say, do you realize that you've been speaking about Steve for the last 3 years and he's married? You could be using this vibe, this conversation to say, I'm looking for someone new. And he had some of the qualities I liked and I'd like you to help me, instead of going, oh yeah, the men they all suck and nobody wants to be committed. This is what I hear all the time. The women are saying there's no good men. There's a lot of good men, but the women make it difficult because there's certain things that are in their mind about themselves because they've been hurt. And men, you wouldn't believe, ladies, how sensitive they are. Men are actually easier to work with than the busy women that I coach. Because when they are hurt, they don't have a group like this to talk to. They don't have any. They don't tell their presidents of companies aren't going to tell their buddies. They feel like they're 5 years old, sucking their thumb, crying at home over some woman. But they tell me that. And then I help them rebuild that confidence in themselves and look at themselves and repackage them and help them feel hot. And I buy them new clothes. Because a lot of men come to me that are in their 50s and 60s and they're like, I want to meet a woman 10 years younger. I said, well, we're going to have to spiff up your wardrobe because you look like a grandpa, like, woo-hoo. So I'm a very fun coach.
Okay, do the women come in and do the same thing? Because
a lot of women don't, I go to their house.
An old guy, the women though, because, the guys, a lot of times they're older acting because they haven't been exercising and stuff. And a lot of the women, they're taking care of themselves and all this. And so a lot of women, like my husband's 5 years younger than me, well, and,
It's about you being spicy and the videos, I really love to spice women up. And sometimes I go to their house and I look through their wardrobes and I'm like, some of these clothes look kind of, they go, oh, when I'm at home, I just wear whatever. And there was a woman at a conference I spoke. I think it was one of Ruth's, or who was it? I can't, Marsh Ingle. I spoke about this and this woman was in the back of the room with her arms like this, beautiful woman. And she goes, oh, I'm done with men. They're all frumpy and whatever. And I said, well, I would give you a guarantee. If you take my class, I could switch that out. I said, so what do you do? She goes, I'm home all day in my pajamas. And I just don't really go anywhere other than walking my dog. And I'm on the phone all day. And I said, well, when you go out, you can meet your husband anywhere. You could meet him at the grocery store. Why don't you put a little pink lipstick? You're beautiful. Look at your hair. You're so cute. Put on something pink, wear blue. Men love color, So anyway, she took my class. 2 weeks later, she heard my voice. She was moving an older woman into an apartment that lived in her building. She put on a pink little zippy, I forget the name of Juicy Couture. Back then, it was about 8 years ago. Little zippy pink jacket. She's a blonde, really adorable. And she knocked on the apartment door and a gorgeous man was standing there at 8 o'clock in the morning. But she had pink lipstick on and a little bit of blush, so she didn't look all pale and pasty. And the guy and her ended up getting married. The guy was so attracted to her because she looked so adorable. And then the little old woman that she was moving said, she's single and you guys should go out. They never were apart from that day. Wow. And it happened. And she was 64 at the time. So it can happen any minute, any time, but you have to really get a mind change. As you get older, you can still be spicy. I don't want to say how old I am, but I'm up there. I feel so young, but I had a big birthday this year and I call it my forever 29. I'm forever 29.
Yeah.
But, you figure I went back to school back in the 70s. So you can kind of add it all up, But I feel young and beautiful, and women I go into their closets and I said, just get a few things that like this shirt is one of my favorite cuts for women if you have nice shoulders. So you got to look at what you have and accent the positive, your legs, your neck, your neckline, wear your hair up so you can see your neckline, and wear pretty jewelry just so you feel sparkly. And it's an open green light signal. And flirting. And I told you, my flirting class is probably everybody's favorite, to teach.
Well, and you have that coming up March 4th. I know that.
It'll change everything if you really want to spice up. But it really is an inside mind job, about, as a wife, I've been with Joe 18 years. And like you, we were talking about being spicy and, the hot tub and all the things that,
I know. I used to do videos from my hot tub.
You did? Oh,
yeah, my coach wasn't real specific. He's in Steamboat Springs, and he was Travis Greenlee. He was doing all these videos out at the mountains and on the ski slope. And I thought, okay, well, I live on the lake, and in the wintertime, I go in the hot tub. So I started doing my tips from the hot tub.
And it was out of the box. Like, I go out of the box. Yeah. Like, I dress up a lot, and my friends call me the Italian. What do they call my friend? He always goes, dun, 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 you're here, and because he always wears sparkly things. I like that. I just want to stay young and beautiful. And, you're every time I've ever seen you on a video, and, I've watched some of your things, you're always so gorgeous. You're very beautiful and glowing. And a lot of women lose the glow because their husbands aren't really, maybe aren't chasing after them, or they don't have that sparkle anymore. And that is really what I help with a lot. I like to help couples too, but
you mentioned something, and we didn't talk about the challenge because there were 3 challenges you said for really busy single women. Is one of them are they workaholics, or is it their mindset? I mean, the things that they're facing.
When you really think
about it, is it different?
It's timing. It's all about, where you are in your life, because many of us have, like I have this thing here, you're either a busy parent with kids at home, you're in the midst of a breakup, happily married, but feeling disconnected. You're in a relationship that is out of sync, and people get out of sync and they just don't, they want to do something about it, but they're still working all the time. You have to literally say, I have to carve out space to evaluate this. And then there is actually an article that I could send you. It's called How to Get Back in Sync. And I'm taking some of that. But if you're ready and looking for sacred love, are you really being that way yourself? And I think that the COVID has given us a space to examine ourselves. Like I've slowed down. I've been cooking, and I've been baking, and I've been deepening my connections with my sisters. We have sister moment talks. And my husband and I too, we're together all the time. Aren't you with your husband all the time now? We're with each other's husbands. So if you've been disconnected, this is an opportunity for the feminine part of you to reconnect. And so I have some tips for that, that I'd like to share.
Oh, please do.
I mean, I actually wish I could have shown my PowerPoint, because I use this at conferences. But when you're feeling disconnected, I call it the 3 T's, which is using timing, the tone of your voice, and touch. Okay. So for example, I call it talk to the hand. When you're busy and the timing is off, your husband might be like, my husband does this. And my dad used to do it to me, because I'd always run it. My dad was a workaholic, and so was my mom. And he would always put his hand up like this. So you go into your husband, or he comes to you, and you do the talk to the hand, and they're like, I'm busy. So the tone shows that, and they might have something exciting, and sometimes I get my feelings hurt, and my husband was working. This is when this all started. We lost 3 parents in 1 year. We were going through health challenges, and I decided that I was going to try to be that feminine energy that was going to nurture him. He lost 2 parents. I lost my dad in a year and a half. It was like, and there were, health challenges come up. So we have rituals that we do that I'm going to share with you, that are very important. And I advise every couple, if you are married, to have a heart. This heart, I have them all over the house. When you buy my book, I advise you to buy a heart that represents your heart. And one of my cousin gave me this heart.
And I saw your big pillow, your pink pillow heart.
My heart pillow. And then this heart is a pyrolite heart that I believe represents a lot of people, where you have half of your heart's dug out and then the other half of the heart is really put together. But this is a very powerful stone that my husband bought me a few years back. But I have hearts all over the house. But this particular heart, so when we get disconnected, I put the heart on his desk, or I leave the heart next to the bed. And that means it's time for a heart to heart. You know, like we need to connect, instead of saying, you know what, you're not talking to, it's the tone. If you get the bitch tone, men don't like, I mean, most men or women don't like it. Like, come on, like what happened? And it's usually because it's stress or money issues right now. And, you know, all the cooking and you got the kids and you have, you know, going business. Some people's businesses have been really taking a tank, and money stress comes, right. But you still have each other. So it's a gratitude thing, and it's a tone and touch. So what I used to do, and women used to say, how can you do that? Like, you know, when you're in this zone, you figure your husband or your wife or your partner is the source, that you're their only source for sex, hopefully, unless they're out running around. But if you have a sacred marriage, which I believe that I do, I know that I am that source, and it doesn't always have to be sexual. So we have what we call KT time, which is koala time. So when we get disconnected sometime, and sometimes on the weekends, I'll say, can we have KT? And we get in bed, and I hold him, or he holds me, because he's twice the size of me. So I feel like I'm a koala, like on top, like I hold him and I'm tucked into him. And we do deep breathing, and it makes us feel so bonded. And sometimes it turns into more of a romantic time, and sometimes it doesn't. But if you go to bed angry, or you're not communicating, it's because you have resentments build up about something, or fears about money, or the kids are driving you crazy, whatever it might be. But there has to be a person that takes the step to bring that conversation into play. And if they go, I will give you the link for the couples out of sync, because there's many, many couples right now that are completely out of sync, but that is the person that you committed to, you vowed to. So you have to remember those things. And I look back, you know, over the last 2 years of really hard times, when my dad passed, and Joe Biden actually came from Washington to be at my father's funeral. I'll have to send you the picture. It was the most special thing that he showed up for my dad. But during that time, we were both broken, you know, hearted that we had lost our parents. But we look at each other and we tell each other the things that we're grateful for all the time, you know, that we have. And money, my husband is in healthcare. And this last year, no sales. Nobody was buying anything, you know, and that is tough for a guy and tough for us. If you've been in an industry, you know, where now all those meetings that he had last year are all coming around. And I kept encouraging him. I said, all those little seeds that you planted during COVID will now come back this year. So don't you notice that too with your clients? Many are upset because of money issues.
Absolutely.
And, you know, you have to be grateful for what we have. Right. And now, just yesterday, he's like, oh, all those seeds, you were right. And so what I do is I go and at night, I pet my husband. He lays in bed and I can tell he's stressed.
And you know, we're at the top of the hour. I've been trying to, because this is so juicy, I don't want to lose anymore, but we're at the top of the hour. And I don't want to forget to share how people can connect with you. So just give your website right now with the contact.
My website is Renee. Right now. It's RENEE, Renée Piane, piano with an E.com. And I'm giving away a lot of gifts, exercises to get you in balance. I'm going to give away consultations for people that are reinventing, that might want to speak to me personally. And I just really want to inspire everyone just to stay connected if you are in love, and do not give up on love. And I'd highly invite you to get my book and the vows that come with it, to vow to your heart that you're going to carve out sacred time to find love for yourself.
Wonderful.
And I can help you with that. So I can't believe it's over.
Yeah, it is. It's over. And I see the countdown from the producer. So, I'm so sorry. But it's been a thrilling thing to have you. And if you're part of Smart Women's Empowerment, you'll get to meet Renée. So we'll connect more. But thank you for being here. And everyone, until we get together again in 2 more weeks, go out and live with more purpose, passion, and prosperity.
Thank you for joining us here at Smart Women Talk Radio, a place to learn, prosper, and grow. Tune in again next week for another exciting episode of Smart Women on the CTR Network. And remember to live with purpose, passion, and prosperity.